Welcome to Anupali. I hope you are having a wonderful Sunday evening and that your day was well spent either in worship or with family. I wish, first of all, to extend my sincere condolences to the family of the late Arthur Valerie, better known as Siko, and special condolences to his fiancée, Agatha, his children, sisters, and brother. We will certainly miss him, and I'm happy that he had a wonderful send-off yesterday afternoon. Last week, I had Mr. Shane Carrier, the young businessman of Portsmouth, on the program. Someone, having heard him, approached him about the possibility of contracting his services on a major project here in Dominica. This young man was able to land himself a major contract, and I am so very happy for him and his company. God bless you, young man, and we wish you all the very best. I am happy to be with you again this evening to discuss matters of national significance, matters that directly impact your lives and that of our families. This program, Anupali, was designed to get closer to you, the people, the Dominican people, to hear your concerns and to keep you up to date with government's programs and the ways we are working to make life better for all of you. I have had positive feedback from you so far, and you have told me that you now look forward every Sunday to hearing about the work your government is doing in various sectors of the economy and society. Last week, we spoke about the opportunities in agriculture and the gains we are making to boost production levels and to create more opportunities for growth within that sector. This week, I have chosen to focus on health. In the second half of Anupali this evening, I will speak with the Minister for Health, Wellness, and New Health Investments, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre. And I can say to you, we have much to talk about. But I wish to start this evening by focusing on the work that the National Health Commission is doing to improve the management structure of Dominica's hospitals and health system, to develop systems that ensure accountability at all levels of management, and to attract and retain qualified and able professionals to perform key functions. The Health Commission was established in 2017 by a decision of the Cabinet, and its work is now well underway to improve the quality and the effectiveness of healthcare services to our nationals and visitors. Indeed, the fundamental objective of the National Health Commission is to ensure that the common man, that is, every one of you, and indeed every one of us, can benefit from improved delivery of services at all levels of the health system. With me are Mrs. Jennifer Astafan and Mr. His Excellency Illud Williams, our former president. Mrs. Astafan is the deputy chairperson, and His Excellency Mr. Williams, our former president, is a member. I wish to welcome Your Excellency to Anupali, and thanks for accepting my invitation to be here. And also Mrs. Jennifer Astafan. Both of you have worked extensively in the public service and the private sector. Mrs. Astafan, have a very, very long, distinguished career in the public as and also, as a matter of fact, both of you outside of Dominica shores. So, please welcome.
Thank you.
Your Excellency.
It is in fact a pleasure to be here. We have been working as a commission, as you said, since late
2017.
Yes, 2017. But again, because of the hurricane, we had a bit of a drawback. So we really got going in March of 2018 when you visited and delivered the vision for healthcare and health services within Dominica. And as mentioned before in another forum, we have used your vision for the health services, making them better, making them more effective as our guiding light, so to speak.
Thank you. Mrs. Astafan, any opening comments, please?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say good evening to the listening public and to hope that this program and the series of programs and sensitization will not only focus on hospital care, but will help them to focus on empowerment and empowering themselves to take their own health care, take responsibility for their health care with a focus at the primary care level. Of course, I know this evening our focus is on the hospital because that for us is the most pressing arrangement, but eventually we hope that the transformation will take the focus back to primary care.
Thank you very much. But tell the viewing and listening public more about the National Health Commission and who are the people we have engaged to take on this very important task of restructuring health administration in our beautiful country, Dominica.
Well, the commission is chaired by Dr. Dorian Shillingford. Some people may wonder because of his age but he has a wealth of knowledge, and it's amazing how his memory, I mean, even for things we work together on, he can remind me of what worked and what didn't work, what we tried, what we didn't try. So he has that extensive experience and knowledge, and still reads and knows and keeps up to date.
I will say to you that if somebody were to ask me to name 10 great Dominicans, Dr. Dorian Shillingford would be one of them.
And I would agree with that.
Exceptional gentleman who has labored in this country for decades, and he's still at it. Mm-hmm. And I really want to thank him on behalf of the government and people of Dominica for his continued service. And I think all of us young people need to learn from this gentleman, and he is a gem of Dominica. Please, sorry, I don't want to intervene, but I really wanted to say this about Dr. Dorian Shillingford. Yeah.
Yes, we also have Dr. Ruby Blanc, who is a member. For this phase of the Commission's work, she has been able to give us, clear insights into what's really going on in hospital, and has been able to support the work of the Commission as Hospital Medical Director. There's Mrs. Cheryl Roll, who has brought the insurance and finance perspective and continuously reminds us about how much money leaves this country in terms of claims to send people overseas. The other member is Dr. Donald Peters, and maybe some people don't know that Dr. Peters' earlier career was in health. He was very involved in health administration in the US, so he brings that knowledge to the Commission. We also have Mrs. Cecilia Martin, who's there as a patient advocate, whose primary focus is on training and human resource management, who also worked with Ross in human resource management. Did I forget anybody? Then we have the technical and administrative support, Mrs. Joan Henry and Mrs. Marilyn Zamo.
So we can say we have an A-team.
Well, I hope.
We hope so.
I believe so.
Yeah. Just quickly on Dr. Shillingford, what I find really interesting, Mrs. Asman made reference to his age, but he's probably the person who answers the WhatsApp messages quickest. He responds to emails, and he's always ready to share with you information from social media. So he's there. It's quite interesting.
So he's a young old man.
Well,
but tell us, I mean, what are some of the main objectives of the National Health Commission?
Yeah. Well, Ramsey, the first one, and perhaps the major one, was that we were required as a commission to have a look at various reports that would have been produced by agencies, notably agencies like PAHO, University of the West Indies, and others on health and healthcare in Dominica. And we're going to do that with some emphasis on the hospital's management, and also to take a look at reforming the way fees are paid, how the hospital is financed. But also, there's a recognition that there are deficiencies within the Ministry of Health. And so another objective was to take a look at the ministry, have a look at its structure, and to see what gaps exist and what recommendations we can make to you and Cabinet on policy that would impact the leadership of the ministry. We also, and very importantly, given the responsibility to review systems and procedures at the hospital, and in particular, the governance structure at the hospital. And on that, we have done a lot of work, because a fundamental problem at the hospital today is the absence of clear leadership. And that's not necessarily blaming anyone, it is just a fact of life. And so it is, in fact, a primary objective of the Commission to take a look at what's happening elsewhere in the world, so that hospitals are managed by a board whereby responsibility for day-to-day operation, responsibility for policy development obtains much closer to the hospital where it's actually happening. And for that to happen, and to happen well, the budget, which is normally approved by government, is passed on, so to speak, to a hospital board, which will have responsibility for managing. We also had, as another objective, to examine the possibilities of setting up a center of excellence in Dominica. We have not done a lot of work on this, because we recognize establishing centers of excellence require a lot of effort. It requires training, it requires competent staff and resources. And then the last major objective had to do with how do we create partnerships with other organizations within the OECS and the wider CARICOM that would benefit our own health services.
But just to be clear, the hospital is not being privatized.
Absolutely
right?
not.
So it is so you're seeking to create greater autonomy
and efficiency.
Efficiency. So that people actions can be taken much more swiftly,
right,
and that can benefit those of us who are seeking medical care at the hospital.
And that's an important point. We like to refer to it as a national hospital. It is financed by government, and we expect that to continue, because in fact the world is moving more and more towards universal access. So at no point have of any work we've done or have we tried to convey in any way that the hospital is going to be privatized. In fact, it can't be, because it is Dominica's hospital.
Now, your work is heavily focused on improving the administrative structure of the health system and changing the way we do things. What are some of the measures you're looking at, let us say your commission, is looking at to implement that will revolutionize healthcare in Dominica?
Well, some of the measures we're looking at specifically for hospital is a move away from the tripartite management in terms of the new governance structure. So that a CEO who then becomes the person who is accountable.
So the proposal is that there be a chief executive officer who will have overall management responsibility for the hospital.
And reporting.
To the board.
Appointed by the minister.
By the minister. Yes. So the board reports to the minister, the CEO reports to the board.
Yeah. And there will be various other.
Because as it is now, that's for the public's consumption. As it is now, you have many chiefs up there, for want of a better term. And they all report to the permanent secretary.
But it gets worse than that, because there are three people who are in responsible positions at the hospital or are in charge. And each of them reports to a different person at the ministry. So herein lies the beginning of all the other problems.
So we really need to move quickly to address this. But please, sorry.
Yeah, so one of the major changes that will come in the governance will be a human resource department, which will focus on individuals and their training and discipline and engagement and hiring and recruitment. The other major change will be the creation of a Department of Engineering. As it stands now, what we have is what is called a maintenance department. In today's day, this really can't work. With CAT scans and MRIs, you really, in terms of biomedical and equipment functioning, equipment procurement, that will be critical. But more so, what we intend to do is to set the trajectory on an accreditation context. So when you do that in the context of accreditation, the standards, the protocols clearly set out the lines of accountability and really create the framework and the environment for people to account for deviations in what should be standards and protocols.
So it is clear to me that you've gone in there, you have consulted, you have studied, you have analyzed, and then you have been able to identify from all of these actions the challenges at the hospital, and you're sort of putting forward suggestions on how you believe that the commission can transform the health system in Dominica. And you're focusing heavily on the management structure of the hospital and the administrative structure of the hospital.
Yes, and more than that, but we've not come to our conclusions easily.
Okay.
We've come to our conclusions having conducted hearings in which we've heard over 100 people, including stakeholders like the Cancer Society and all those persons who use the hospital services. We've come to these conclusions by having community consultations with people who have been in hospital in the districts. Well over 200 people. We've collected that data and had it analyzed. So we have not jumped to conclusions, but we've included people in that. And even more, besides this sensitization, we're really hoping what we can begin to get from the public is feedback and comments to our email address, which I believe we didn't have for DBS on Tuesday.
So you've started your public consultation. You will continue this. Having done all of this, you will forward recommendations to the cabinet, the Prime Minister, Minister of Health, the cabinet. Now, the cabinet receives those recommendations. We approve those recommendations. We implement them. What will our healthcare system look like 5 or 10 years down the road, having implemented all of these measures? What do you envision?
What we're hoping it will look like is exactly set in the context of health as a right. The only public hospital on the island, and the question of payment for service at the point of service will be eliminated. In other words, there will be other mechanisms to pay. So whether you're from Pong, or you're from gutter, or you can't afford, or you've never worked, or your grandmother is 80 and you are 20 but you have a job, everybody who enters the hospital will be treated equally and will get the same care that the person who can afford, who has health insurance, will get.
So you said, I mean, we hear complaints. I mean, let's speak candidly. I mean, we're having a conversation among ourselves as the Dominicans. We hear complaints about the delivery of services at the hospital. My friend from Stock Farm, let's say Annie Morency, good night, goes to the hospital, she complains of the challenges which they experience in here. I mean, how do we see these things being fixed?
Yeah, you want to go ahead? I think a first important observation, and that we have concluded, has been a lack of accountability. So whether it is, if we can break it down, to a nurse who should have rails on the bed of a stroke patient because that's the right thing to do, that's the unwritten protocol, failing to put that rail and the patient falls over. In the new dispensation, there will have to be a report. Why is it wasn't done? So one thing that would be very different is that staff at the hospital, lab tech, x-ray, doctor, everyone is going to be held responsible against predetermined actions. We are people, we seem comfortable to pick up the phone and call. You ask someone who has a complaint to write, there's a difficulty. We will make that easier. We're saying in the new arrangements, there will be a form. If a technician, a doctor, has to respond to a call, that must be documented. The time the call is made, when the doctor or the nurse or the lab tech responded, what action was taken, how it was taken, the time frame, and that has to be reported. And importantly, going forward, nobody in the new arrangement will have a job for life, so to speak. And by that what I mean, it's not that you come in tomorrow morning to work and you're not sure if you're going to have a job. No, that's not what we're saying. There will be legislation that says if you are a professional working at the hospital, you will have to have your contract of service renewed periodically. And for that contract of service to be renewed, you will have to show that you have done certain minimum number of hours of continuing professional education. You have had to make rounds, you have done them. You have had to do a certain number of public patients who need surgery. That's going to have to be done, that's going to have to be recorded. So essentially what you will see in the new arrangement is that people will be empowered. Patients will know they have rights, and those who work to satisfy these needs will have to report on what they do. So I see the whole emphasis being now on greater accountability at the hospital, and hospitals, and because you have someone right there who is able to ask the right questions, you have to report to the board. And there is another very important provision that's being made, and that is in the draft legislation, and I emphasize draft because Cabinet has not considered it.
But can you tell the public which legislation you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I was going to do. Yeah. In the Hospital Management Hospital Authorities Act, there is provision for the minister at any time to request information from the board, from the CEO, on any incident at the hospital. And there is a timeline within which the CEO and the board would have to report to the minister. And we think that's important because the minister may need that information to respond to a question in the House. So essentially what we're saying is we're going to move from a situation where now there is little accountability. And I don't want the public to get the impression as if we're beating on PMH. There's some people that are doing really very good work. What we want to do is to ensure that work is done even better. And just one more thing which will change the face of the thing is, for the first time, the board will have the opportunity to have a public meeting. Once a year we are proposing as well, the board will have a meeting where members of the public will have been able to send questions to the board to be answered. Of course, there will be rules governing this so that you don't have anybody just walking in at any point and asking the question, because the question you're asking may have to be researched. But the whole idea is there's going to be great emphasis on people's power within the context of the new hospital, so that the $27-30 million now being spent on the main hospital, with 77% of it going to staff costs, salaries, wages, allowances. These allowances must not just be paid because we are used to paying them. If you receive an allowance, it must be because you've delivered a particular service at night, and somebody must be able to certify that that service was in fact delivered. And we take it a step further by having an internal auditor on staff who will be able to go back and pull through some of these forms, pull through some of the payment vouchers, and certify they were in fact completed for work done.
So you're saying with the Hospital Authority Act, well, once it passes into law, it becomes an act, it's now a bill. It will seek to improve the standards and the efficiency of our health system, particularly at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital. And it will therefore improve the quality of service. Are these things you say?
You're absolutely correct. In fact, in the proposed structure, quality and risk management takes on a whole new area of importance. That's going to be there. That's going to be highlighted. There are going to be people responsible for doing that. Yes, absolutely.
So what I'm hearing here is that we're now seeking to take the administration of healthcare into the 21st century.
Yeah. And beyond.
And beyond.
We won't be able to.
And beyond.
Yes.
And beyond. Yes. But what about the doctors complain about terms and conditions. Are we also giving consideration to this?
Yeah, but certainly we in fact, I like to view it in the context of rewards first, and then sanctions as an absolute last resort. So I like the idea, and you probably might consider in asking us, I don't know, that you must do continuing professional education. It is so in every professional field now, because that's how you're going to stay on the cutting edge. So if you need to have 20 hours, let's say, of continuing professional education, it should not necessarily be left entirely to the doctor to meet that cost. In the new arrangements, the hospital must be willing to share in this, so that if you need to go to New York, or you need to go to California or to Holland to do something, and now fortunately you can do more of that online, the hospital authority must be prepared to share the cost. But you have to do it because under the medical professionals bill, pharmacy and so on, all of this will require you're going to have to re-register every 3 years or so.
So
that's going to be
we also
important.
have the medical professionals bill and the pharmacy
Nursing.
bill and the nursing bill. So there are a number of
And
pieces
allied.
of legislation that we need to put in place to address the concerns which doctors are raising, to address the concerns which nurses are raising, and to address the concerns which pharmacists are raising. So we're not only looking at patient care, we're also looking at the professional development of all those wonderful people who provide services for the welfare of our citizens.
Added to that will be the bill for allied, what is called allied health, which includes some of your hospital technicians, your physiotherapists and so, who will require certification to show as well that they're keeping up with whatever new trends are. And that will be the full suite of supporting legislation.
But Your Excellency, you were PS of Health for many years. I mean, you look younger than me, but you're not. I'm nowhere close to your age. And Mrs. Affan was also PS of Health, and I think CPO at some point, and so forth. We've had this medical professional bill being kicked around for many years, even before I became Prime Minister. That's correct?
I'm not sure about that.
Not
I
sure
don't
about
think so.
that.
I
It's
think
been around
that
for some time.
2013,
This is like the
2014. I think
some
initiated by Dr. Stringford as
Mr.
well
Stringford,
while he was chairman of the medical board. It's been around for a while, but you know, sometimes things just happen at the right time, and everything will dovetail now.
Yeah. And you believe
as
this
it's
is the
happening.
moment?
This is the moment,
This is the moment
for things to happen.
for things to happen.
One of the key areas that now requires far more studied focus is the question of the introduction of telemedicine and looking at remote health services. And certainly the COVID experience has shown us now, for example, we need technicians to come to mount the CT scan. Technician comes from California.
Because that's one of the questions I want to ask you. I mean, I want you to ask you.
We have nobody on island who can do that. So how are we going to deal with a situation in the future, and even now, where any pandemic can lock us off from the rest of the world, and how do we use electronic media to help us to resolve those problems?
We have a problem in this country. I mean, people complain all the time that they go to the hospital, they can't get a CT scan, they cannot get their chemistry done, a test, they cannot get an X-ray done, the machine is down. People tell me that they have to get the part from other places. I say, well, why can't we go on a plane and buy the part and bring it back in our luggage and all these things? I mean, I have had to spend, both from the government and my party, which I lead, significant sums of money in recent time to pay for persons to get CT scans done. I mean, how do we fix it? When we put these things in place, will these things be like branches, stories, things of the past? I mean, would they be stories? They won't be happening again? Or, if they break down, will we be able to, in that new structure, be able to fix these things much quicker than we're currently doing?
Well, we will need to. One of the things we haven't looked at in detail is the fact that your radiology and imaging services are not just for hospital. So we have 4 or 5 departments in hospital that are really national services. So there's a hospital, and with its services, and there had been a proposal, I believe it's there somewhere, for legislation and a policy to have national lab services. So you have your lab at hospital services, hospital, private patients coming in from the districts and otherwise. At some point we have to carve out what belongs only to the hospital, your central sterile supply department. So you have lab, X-ray, central sterile, and your procurement that serve the entire island. So at some point, those national services will have to be looked at. And I think what happens in the course of things, some of it gets diverted, the funds get diverted, the staff get diverted otherwise. So it's a question of how do we deal with the budgets for these national services vis-a-vis hospital services. In other words, should we have dedicated equipment just for hospital and then have a national imaging facility that serves the district and other persons? These are questions that will have to be examined in greater detail.
I guess these things will come when they have the new structure in place, and in terms of the operationalization of the hospital, these things are in place. The other thing I've been talking about in the public, look, we're building this new hospital, and people are bringing in their own pillowcases, their suitcases, their bedspread, and most of us, we hide this breakfast for when we're sick, and then we bring this thing in plastic, and then their bed bugs and all these things. I mean, I have said so publicly about the need for us to have standards and to say, look, the hospital will provide the pillowcases, the cases itself, the pillows, themselves, the sheets, etc. I mean, is that part of the commission's mandate, or you leaving it to the board?
Well, we weren't going to be able to. Some things are iterative, but it was interesting at the meeting with the supervisory staff of hospital last week, different groups, when the head seamstress, I didn't even realize hospital still had a big sewing room that continues to sew a lot of things. But I mean, of course, there are supplies for hospital sheets and those things. The question is, along with that, you have to have an efficient laundry system. Now, these are some of the services that we haven't looked at, because sometimes we think that the new hospital is going to provide everything, but some of these services we have to look, dietary and laundry and all these services that support that kind of
I think sometimes we overlook the domestic workers, and they always say that, because they're in the engine room, and they provide the meals, and they do the cleaning, and they do the sewing as indicated, and so I'm hoping that we can give special attention to them in that dispensation. But what's next for the commission? The cabinet has approved a number of decisions for you, including giving you the green light to recruit a CEO, and to engage in public consultation, etc. What's next?
Well, PM, there are several actions still required, and I think it's important to mention that, is it last week, a couple of weeks ago, you gave us the undertaking that monthly we will have the opportunity to dialogue with you, so that every bottlenecks we encounter, they can be broken right there and then. There's still a lot to do. There's still the issue of security, and we have looked at that as well in a preliminary way. Hospital is just much too accessible. So going forward, we're going to have to bring this under control, because it's as simple as, how do you come to the hospital if you have no business there? And if there is a matter of national significance, some disaster or other, everybody suddenly arrives at the hospital. There are control points that really need to be done, but also the legislation must be passed. The arrangement to ensure how the theater is used, how do we get private practitioners working to earn some additional money, but at the same time ensuring that Dominican who started because he took ill in Colihu can get the required support, can get the care he or she needs without having to wait a year. Because even in situations where we have technical assistance people, we still do not seem to find there is sufficient speed with which these people. So the Commission has that going forward. The budget that will ensure that there is a transition and transformation is something that is also on the cards. So I like to put it this way, that the plan is, the proposal is, and that will be for Cabinet's approval, to go live with the new arrangement come 1st January.
Okay.
But when that happens, there will still be a lot of work to do. HR for the first time will find that they need to ensure they know what is the capacity of the staff. We will start that work, but we will not necessarily continue. Engineering, we're going to have significant new buildings, 11 buildings, 9 to 11 buildings. I'm not sure at this point, which is just because some of them go together. Equipment. And then importantly, if we are buying equipment from GE or from Toshiba or whoever, what arrangements do we have in place? What say do we have in the contract? And so for the first time as well, we're proposing we will have a legal person on staff who can read the fine prints so that you are not just sending us a contract.
Because one of the challenges we have with regards to all of this equipment is that we purchase this equipment, very expensive, and then we enter into some kind of maintenance agreement with these suppliers. And so if something goes bad or something becomes dysfunctional with this system, with this equipment, we have to wait for them to send somebody from the United States, in most cases, to come in. And now with COVID, we have a problem.
So that's what telemedicine, that's what greater use of the internet. And these are some of the lessons we would have learned from COVID, making greater use of electronics. So yes, and also very importantly, a preventive maintenance program. But our engineers, so that's why what is now maintenance must be elevated, must apprise themselves of the details so that when a piece of equipment is purchased, we know what we have purchased, whom we have purchased it from, and what arrangements we have on the ground for maintenance. So it's the proposal really is...
We'll come back to the timeline because I would like to ask you a question on the timeline. Is there a question? A call? No? Okay. Now, you met with me, I believe, 2 weeks ago, and you advised me.
Yes.
And I took that advice to the cabinet. And among many other things, you said to me that the legislation will be ready to go to Parliament in September 2020.
Yes.
And you believe that we can go live, meaning that the new structure can be in place January 1, 2021.
We still believe that is possible.
Yeah.
We still believe.
So I will not go to cabinet and tell them, well, you know, we have to postpone it. No.
No,
shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. And it is important that we have the new legislation in place because currently there is no provision for recruiting a CEO at the hospital. The tripartite, the triumvirate arrangement which exists there, we know is not functional and it has to change. But to bring in the CEO has to have specific functions and this must be within. And that's what you said to us. In fact, it started with you on March 2nd, 2018, that we will need to have it within the legislative framework. And absolutely, we have gone that way. So we have had assistance, and it's a good time to recognize Professor Velma Newton and the assistance we got from Impacts in drafting the hospital authorities legislation. We believe, and we've been collaborating with Mrs. Xavier in the AG's office, that a final draft will be ready within another week, so we can begin consultations on that.
So the following bills will be taken to Parliament. The Hospital Authority Bill, the Medical Professionals Bill, the Nursing Profession Bill, and the Pharmacy
and Allied Health.
And Allied Health.
Will not be ready with the Allied, would you?
Yeah.
Allied.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be a generic
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pieces.
Or is it
of,
5?
I think it's. I think it's 6, about 6 of them. Somewhere, but we'll be ready in September. So I'm saying to the country, based on the advice of the Health Commission, we will go to Parliament in September, God's willing, and declare September Health Transformation Month.
Sounds good.
So sounds good to me.
Sounds
Thank you very much. We have our first call, please. Hello.
Hi, good evening. Kim, I want to start off by saying this is a great news.
Hi, please turn off your television. Thank you.
I wanted to say that I came on the program late, but I didn't hear any mention about communication and customer service. In the last 4 years, I've been a patient at the hospital as many times, and I can tell you of all the great things that have been done, but I would prefer to focus on some challenges I had. and especially in terms of the empathy of the staff. And it might be considered minor to some people, but say, for example, you come as a pregnant woman, but you happen to have a migraine, and you have staff who are not in uniform, who are walking with slippers, and you can hear their feet going tap, 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 and you would say, can you please change your shoes? And they're offended. So this might be considered a minor thing, but if you're a person who has a migraine, it's a major thing, you know? So I think, I don't know if it can be incorporated in your training, but there needs to be something where customer service, it's not only about the technical stuff, knowing what dosage to give, but also feeling the pain that your patients have and showing them that you care about them. I think with some of your staff, that is lacking. And on top of that, the communication needs to be improved in terms of signage at the hospital, directional signage, and other types of signage. And that's my contribution. But great program. And I'm encouraged by all the points that you have made, all of you have made this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have taken note of your observations. And we give you the assurance that these things are incorporated in our consideration. Thank you very much. Any other caller? But this is, I mean, health is wealth, as we say, and health is the most important aspect of a nation. I mean, we have spent a lot of money on training, on the infrastructure, health infrastructure, building a number of health centers and hospitals, but we all agree that there are still gaps. And what we're seeking to do is to fill those gaps. Not criticizing anybody, not belittling anybody, but recognizing that a lot of good things have been done, but we can still do better.
Absolutely.
Please, oh, sorry, Excellency. Yes, a call, please. Hello.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I have a question. Like, I mean, all the plans and everything that you guys are talking about sounds really good, but I have a question as it relates to people who are in need of services that can't be offered at the hospital. So, for example, I see a lot of GoFundMes and I see a lot of people going to talk to their reps or caretakers. So my question is, well, I have two. The first one is there going to be a hospital administrator who can basically maybe go to cabinet and say, we have a patient who is in need of this service and what can be offered and so on. So that sort of eliminates that sort of red tape. And the second question I have is if the radiology is not available, for example, a CT scan is not available and a patient is in need of a CAT scan and the family is unable to obtain the services at Medicus because they can't afford it, will the hospital then pay for it because the CT scan isn't working? Because I know someone and that's their current situation. So I'd just like to get some clarity on that.
Well, we've been advocating for those of us who can afford to procure personal medical health insurance. I mean, that's an important element because, as we all know, globally, healthcare is expensive, and it is expensive, and so we encourage those of us who can afford medical health insurance. We should have this for ourselves and our families. We've also been talking for some years now about a national health insurance scheme. We've had a number of consultancies with this, and what the government decided was to go with a pilot program, looking at particular age groups and the vulnerability of some people in the society to facilitate the provision of financing to cover medical care overseas. What we need to work on in Dominica, and that's what we're working on in Dominica, and of course the Minister of Health is on later this evening, and what the Commission has been mandated to do is to look at our health system and to see how can we improve it to, if not eliminate the need to go overseas, but to minimize or decrease the need for us to go overseas for medical care. I am satisfied that the number of services that we're going out of Dominica for, that we have the capacity to do so, but we need to put the structures in place. And I think with these new structures in place and the hospital having access to the funding immediately to address certain issues, I believe we can certainly overcome this. In respect to the current challenge that we have with the CT scan, the new CT scan was purchased, it is there. The firm was also coming just at the time when COVID-19 came about and all of the ports were closed. So they got as far as Puerto Rico, I've been told, and could not make it to Dominica. And this is a sore point for us in the cabinet, and of course the Minister of Health will speak about it later. But we take note of the issue of those who cannot afford to make the current payments, and I think we'll discuss this and to see what interim arrangement we can make or put in place to ensure that those who need the CT scans, the services of CT scans can certainly access those tests and ensure that they can be taken care of. But we take note of the other points that you've raised. This is all part of the consultation. The Commission will be on a number of radio programs and television programs this week coming. They will be meeting the various groups. They will be in the public as well. And we all will have an opportunity to make suggestions, to draw to attention the challenges which we have experienced, and of course not only the challenges but the positive things that we have also experienced, because we need to build on the positive things that we have and work on addressing the challenges. Mrs. Astafan, I would like to give you an opportunity to give some final comments on the program, and then I will ask His Excellency to do so, please.
My final comments, it would be amiss of me, and I'm sure Dr. Shrinkford would take me to task for this, is to say that notwithstanding the focus on the hospital, we really have to promote primary health care and population health. We have to empower people to be responsible for their health. The high number of CNCDs speaks to that. We have to find a way, so it's the primary care. And while we may have thought that we lost it, the onslaught of COVID proved to us that the primary care system is well and working, because it came out, it proved itself, so we know that it's well and working. And so our whole focus in the future, hopefully in another 2-3 years, will be, as PAHU has proposed, a complete transformation of the entire health system in Dominica.
And we're going to promote more prevention than cure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Astafan. Excellency?
So, just quickly, PM, the issue of long waits at accident and emergency is something we didn't have the time to cover, but we are and have looked at how we make greater use of the Roseau Health Center and Foncole, and thereby reduce non-emergencies at the hospital. So that's a piece of ongoing work. I just wanted to mention that. And interestingly enough, when we met unit heads, we have met consultants before, when we met unit heads last week at the hospital, they were all very enthusiastic about the new arrangements, and that of course is a huge positive. And we like to think we are looking towards accreditation, and that means adopting international standards within the next 3 years. So whatever we do, the focus will be looking 3 years down the road, where we will have accreditation in place, and therefore all our actions will be so focused. So that's it, and we continue to do the work.
Thank you very much. His Excellency made reference to Roseau and the delivery of primary healthcare services. I want to say to the residents of the city of Roseau that we will be constructing a new health center for the city. The Roseau Infant School was never built for a health center. It has served us well, but we can no longer have it in the third decade of the 21st century. And of course, we'll address some of the challenges that are currently being experienced, because having people under the trees on the side of the road waiting to see a doctor certainly is unacceptable. And we take responsibility for this, and we shall fix this. I want on behalf of all of you to thank Mrs. Astafan, to thank His Excellency Williams, and the chairman, Dr. Dorian Shillenford, and the membership of the commission and the supporting staff, and of course the Ministry of Health, for all of the wonderful work they're doing on our behalf. This is hard work, but it is being done out of passion. I can tell you I've had the opportunity to engage every one of these members, and they're doing so because they love our country, Dominica, and want to make a lasting contribution for succeeding generations. And for me, I am certainly touched by the commitment, by the enthusiasm, and the patriotism. And I just hope that all of us can have those same attributes and characteristics, and how wonderful our country would be. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you, Mr. Sapan. Thank you. We shall take a break, and we will come back to you in 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
We are in the hurricane season. Here are some tips to keep your families and communities safe. Before a hurricane, ensure that you know your emergency shelters. Contact the Office of Disaster Management for information on shelters closest to you. Have disaster supplies on hand, non-perishable canned food and water, portable battery-operated radios, flashlights and extra batteries, essential medicines, first aid kits, cash and bank cards. In the home, protect your windows. A low-cost approach is to put up plywood panels. Trim branches away from your home and cut all dead or weak branches on any trees on your property. Check into your home and auto insurance. Confirm that policies are valid and coverage is appropriate. Make arrangements for pets and livestock. Develop an emergency communication plan. Make sure that all family members know what to do. Teach family members how and when to turn off gas, electricity, and water. During a hurricane watch, listen to the radio or television for hurricane progress reports. Avoid open flames such as candles and kerosene lamps as a source of light. If power is lost, turn off major appliances to reduce power surge when electricity is restored. Store drinking water in clean jugs, bottles, and cooking utensils. During a hurricane warning, if you need to evacuate your home, lock up and go to the nearest shelter. Take blankets or sleeping bags to the shelter. Listen constantly to a radio or television for official instructions. Store valuables and personal papers in a waterproof container on the highest level of your home. Stay inside, away from windows and glass doors.
Okay, welcome back. I am joined now by the Minister for Health, Wellness and New Health Investments, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre. I want to say that since assuming the post of Health Minister in December 2019, Dr. McIntyre has hit the ground running. He has had to because of the immediate challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic. I am sure we can all agree that Dr. McIntyre has distinguished himself over the past months with his exceptional leadership during this period of uncertainty. He has led with class and with a quiet confidence that gave us the comfort we need as we continue to battle COVID-19 together. Our success with managing the virus is due in large measure to his able guidance, his reassuring presence, and the experience he brought to bear on the entire process. I believe the country is fortunate to have had Dr. Mark at the helm, and I'm happy to welcome him to chat with me on Anupali tonight. Dr. Mark, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you this evening?
Pretty fine.
I mean, what do you do to relax? I mean, you came into this job and COVID came in, and what do you do to relax and so on?
Two things basically. My flower garden,
The flower garden.
a little bit of vegetable farming, and a little basketball now.
So you do your flower garden. So Valentine's Day, your wife's birthday. I mean, you go in the flower garden and you cut up some beautiful flowers and you give your wife a bouquet. Most guys will have to go and buy. But that's good. Welcome, Dr. Mark. I mean, but it's good to relax in this job, and I'm happy that you have some activities that you engage in. We will get into the health discussion a bit later, but I know you're busy working to meet the needs of your people in the Roseau Valley. Tell me, how are things in the Roseau Valley these days?
Well, we started bubbling once again here, in the sense that with the COVID, we've been relatively calm. So, and you know, in the Roseau Valley, tourism means a lot to us.
Mm-hmm.
And our job is to be hospitable and to welcome people to the Valley. And with COVID, we have to do the opposite to keep people away for social distancing. But now things have calmed down. We're back on track, and tourism is coming back. Our farmers can also they produce as well. So both tourism and the agriculture is back on track. Let alone that it's disaster preparedness time, so we're busy trying to get ready all our different hamlets and the different groups. And as we mentioned that, I must congratulate all my NEP groups. They have done an excellent job so far from Palm Grove all the way to Loda. And the coming week, we're going to do the overhangs. So we're busy. We're busy back in tourism, back in agriculture, back in preparedness. So we're back on track, so to speak.
Yeah. We started a major road in the village of Cochrane. Your predecessor started it, and you are completing it. Can you tell us about this road? I mean, and before you go, I want to greet Mr. Oscar and Mrs. Christina Francis, you know, two of my wonderful friends up there, Keith Richards and Mrs. Hector.
Right.
They're, you know, wonderful people in Cochrane. I mean, I drove to Cochrane the other day. I said, oh, Jesus Christ, I mean, I thought I was in the United States of America.
Yes. It's a pleasure driving on that road. It's 3.9 kilometers of road, and it actually cost the government $23 million. But what this underlines is the fact that although it might be a small community, and it's a road that leads to one village, but the government didn't spare that. So it just shows how everyone is being catered for, regardless of how remote or how small your village is. The government actually spent $23 million on a road to Cochrane, and it's a road well done, the drainage and everything. And more so with hurricane season now, we really wanted it done before hurricane season. So besides the whole aesthetics and beautifying the whole area, it's just something much safer for the villagers, and which they're very pleased for. So it's a job well done, and it's a $23 million well spent. So we're really happy about that road.
And of course, this road can serve as a potential bypass.
Precisely.
In the event of any challenges on the Canefield to Poncassi Road, especially at the Antrim area.
Yes, and that is important too, because with the land slippage that in Antrim, as you mentioned, and it's important to note that this project started long before the election, and actually we completed it after the election, just to underline the fact that it wasn't a gimmick. Okay. It had to be done, and we got it done. So we're really pleased about that.
Now, the government has launched a national housing program. Will the constituency benefit? Is the constituency benefiting from this?
Oh, definitely. We've benefited in the past, and we're going to benefit again, because right now in Cochrane, although we just mentioned the road, but in Cochrane, we have this pre-Concours house being built. Initially, we had 9 to be built, but because of some little landslide, we're going to get 9 of them being built. And I took a look at them, and they're looking pretty good. They're all hurricane resilient, resistant housing. So that's for the Cochrane. And even next to this, we also have plans of putting some apartments in Cochrane as well. But let alone Cochrane, the entire Roseau Valley is going to benefit. As a matter of fact, in Lily Valley in Trafalgar, we have 12 units being built. They should be over within the next 2 to 3 months. 9 of these are 2-bedroom, and 3 of these are 3-bedroom apartments. Because of Mario, and we realized the river close by the water, so we had a little bit of shifting to be done. The foundational depth dug deeper as well. So they're all climate resilient. They're 90% done. All that's left is some tiling to be done, and for us to redirect the road. So these are the 2 going on now. But even a few months, well, even last year, the CMC, Mr. Chris Timmons and I, we visited all the sites in the Roseau Valley where we're going to have apartments built by MMC. So we have identified the sites in Mount Prosper, Wharton Waven, Trafalgar, Loda, and even Cochrane as well. So as for housing, I think the valley is well placed. Later this year, we'll be starting those from MMC, so the people, you can look forward to a very nice housing.
I believe the plan there is to build about 150 of those units in the Roseau Valley to benefit the residents of Roseau Valley, because housing is a critical need.
Very correct.
From Cochrane all the way to Mount Prosper.
Right.
We're building a resource center in Trafalgar. We've tried this for years. We eventually started last year.
Yes.
Any update on this?
Yes, PM. As a matter of fact, the good news is by August we should complete our center.
It's a massive structure.
Massive structure.
And it will serve as a hurricane shelter, offices.
Exactly. So we wanted it's like incubator. We want to just use it, whether it's in terms of even all our community projects, our different educational projects. It's a community center, come research center, come resource center, come hurricane center. Everything will be there. And the community is really, really looking forward to this.
And
Yes.
I have no doubt it will enhance the visitor to Trafalgar.
Exactly.
I think they're getting more than they asked for, because they were already asking for a simple structure. And they've gotten this massive structure which would house the village council,
Yes.
community center, resource center. I believe we'll have a computer room there for internet, Wi-Fi, students
Yes.
can do the research. So I'm very happy for them. Now, Wharton Waven is known for hot water spas. You know, you were talking about T-Queen Glow Show, who is the pioneer. I believe Henry George and his wife there. We have recently D-Escape, Ernest Fountain. We have Screws, Tennyson Joseph, my partner. You know, very, very artistic guy. I mean, this is one of the most artistic guys in the Caribbean. You know, it was very, very good vision and so on. And we've seen what he has done. And then we have Tears, and then we have some other smaller ones in between. The government intended to build a center, a tourism center in Wharton Waven. Where are we on this?
Well, initially we had a massive plan to build a tourism center in Wharton Waven. And that would have included the vendors arcade and restaurants and booths and shops and even some sulfur pools as well. But in Wharton Waven, we are known for community tourism. And somehow in the plan, it was defeating the purpose to have little sulfur pools there, which would be actually competing with the people from Wharton Waven themselves. So we thought, let us just shelve this one a bit and let's come with something new. So what we're going to do in the first phase is to get the vendors arcade, and so we can have washroom facilities so the tourists can be comfortable when they come, and all the vendors, all from Wharton Waven, will have their different stalls. And it's a very comfortable environment and very nice, beautiful area. And then later we can come to phase 2 and phase 3, but we just didn't want the initial one where it would be competing. We wouldn't want the villagers competing with the sulfur pools at that facility that we spoke about. So we're on track with this. Later this year we'll be starting that program. I think the people are pretty pleased that that's the way we're going to go, rather than to have other people from outside just come and take over those things.
We have spent, Dr. Mark, an inordinate amount of money on the Mount Prosper Road. I mean, every time I get a bill from Mount Prosper, I put my hand on my head, because I don't understand, you know, I mean, we could have given everybody in Mount Prosper $300,000 and relocate them. But this is a wonderful community, wonderful. Stabilize the cliff there. That has been done. The area.
As regards to the area, that cliff that we cut down gradually, we have to stop this week. As a matter of fact, that road cost the government $8.9 million.
And counting.
And counting.
Yeah.
And that also underlines the fact that I mentioned earlier as regards to Cochrane and a road for the village. So that's the amount we're going to spend on that road, $8.9 million. We're going to start back next week. They're very pleased that yes, something is going to be done. Yes.
I have many friends in Mount Prosper, Palm, and of course Gloria, Timothy. I have the clerk of the village council, wonderful lady there. I want to greet all of you in Mount Prosper, and I'm hoping to come see you. Actually, I'll come one day. We start the construction of the wall, and then the resurfacing of the road. So I'm hoping to come very soon on this. But we shouldn't forget Loda.
No. Loda is a lovely scenic village of Loda, and no exception, things are going on in Loda. The main thing here in Loda now at the moment is geothermal. And then we really want this to come to completion because we know what it means for the country. We know that obviously to do business in Dominica, you have to consider the cost of energy, electricity. And with our geothermal, we can cut it down by 40%, which will make it easier for us and we'll be more competitive as regards to getting projects. So we have this online. Initially, the bid was a little higher. We had to get back to the drawing board as regards to the reinjection, and I think we're right back on track, PM, and things are going as is. And
we have the hotel to construct, the resort to construct.
We definitely have our...
I say we have started, although not really, the developer has started excavation and up there.
Yes, that's our sanctuary eco resort and spa. And the interesting thing about this is most of the work being done now, we're employing people from the Roseau Valley. I guess the majority might be from Loda because of the close proximity, but it's employment for the Roseau Valley. And obviously with completion of the spa, you know, agriculture will also fit in right into the sanctuary, the eco resort. So, and even the new tourist site for the Middle Falls is almost completion, because that had to be catered for with the new structure that we're going to build there. So it's really looking good for the village of Loda and the territories there.
And of course, work has recommenced on the road in Coptal.
Yes.
We spent several millions the year before, and we're still spending more.
Correct.
Yeah. So, thank you very much, Dr. Mark, and of course, I'm sure the residents of the Roseau Valley are satisfied and pleased with what's happening, and of course, on what's in store to come. Now, let us, Dr. Mark, shift the focus to your portfolio responsibility as minister. I mean, even during the COVID-19 pandemic, we kept working on many major infrastructural projects, namely the Dominica China Friendship Hospital, the Marigot Hospital, which is a massive structure. What is the status of these two critical projects?
Okay, our Dominica China Friendship Hospital. Granted, we had our little delays because of Maria, but we're back on track. We've completed 2 of the phases. We've completed the Medical Technology Building 1, which has the dialysis unit, the X-ray department, imaging, and the accident and emergency as well. And we also completed the I unit, where we have the upper 2 floors for the dormitories and the bottom floor with the theater for the ophthalmology department and the other offices of ophthalmology. But presently, we're actually in 3 phases that have been constructed now. We have the outpatient building being constructed now. We have the medical technology building constructed now. And then we have an administrative building. The administrative building will house the health information unit, the IT department, and we have an amphitheater that can actually house 200 people. And then the outpatient, we will have all the medical, the surgical, the gynecological, all the outpatient stuff will be done there. And the third one, which is the medical technology building, where we have 4 operating theaters, and we also have the blood bank, and we also have the 8-bed ICU. So that's going on now, and we expect this to be complete by July of, by next year, no, by August of this year, so that we can start off with the phase 6. So that's where we are now.
Excellent, excellent. And Marigot,
Marigot, yes, we've made a lot of progress in Marigot. As a matter of fact, we were there some months ago. You were there at 1 p.m. and you saw that large pouring of concrete. And if things goes as planned, and it is going as planned, we should be completing this by April of 2021. And this will be a hospital that serves the entire Northeastern District with everything, theaters, lab, our pharmacies, our maternity department, our ICUs. It's a 40-bed hospital, fully equipped, and we're looking forward to this. Really looking forward to this.
We've built in a number of health centers, some under construction, others to be completed. I want to thank the government, you know, because I have 2 in my constituency, one in Vickers and one in Penville. So I am taking the opportunity on behalf of the power up there to thank the government for these 2 facilities in my constituency. But tell us about these health centers that
there's a total of 12 health centers to be built. At the moment, we have 8 of them near completion. Vickers will be completed. Yours will be completed in June 29th. Penville on October 28th. That's of this year. Wesley will be August 19th. Marigot, I know is June 29th. The Maho one will complete on 14th of August. Georgetown complete 29th. So Georgetown is complete actually. And Bellevue Chopin, June 29th, that's fine as well. And Bagatelle maybe September 15th actually, Bagatelle. So these are the 8 ones. As regards to equipment for these, we've actually done the purchase. And because of COVID, we had a little delay. But within 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have all the equipment for these health centers, and we'll be ready to go. The other 4 that I didn't mention, which is Ans-de-May, Soufriere, Newtown, and we have Colliho. We're just working on the acquisition of land for these, and we're pretty much on our way to get this solved. And as soon as this can be resolved, we'll be starting off these. So we're pretty much on track.
I want to thank the Lord Bishop for his commitment to facilitating access to the land on Colliho. So we want to thank the Lord Bishop for that.
Excellent.
But we really look forward to these health centers being completed. They will make a huge difference in the delivery of primary health care services.
Definitely.
And in these health centers, we also have provision for accommodation for the nurses,
That
for
is-
the district nurse.
That is important, PM, because it's the cost to the government of providing accommodation for the healthcare professionals within the districts who might not be from the districts is alarming. So
Yeah.
with these health centers and the accommodation, that should solve a major problem for us.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, earlier tonight, as you know, I met with the health commission members were there, and we spoke about the legislation and the management structures that we're putting in place. Now we're here speaking about the infrastructure. How do you see these things coming together to help improve the quality and the delivery of healthcare services to our citizens and visitors?
Well, that is exactly the comprehensive approach that the Ministry of Health has been referring to all along. It's more than just a structure, and it's more than just the healthcare professional. Granted, the structure makes it a more comfortable environment for the healthcare professionals to function under. But let alone this, the administration is a very integral part of this. So not only administration at the hospitals, but administration at the health centers as well, and within the district, because that's the foundation, that's the basis where everything starts from. So with all of this accountability that we've been speaking about, the improved structures and the whole, just the attitude of the staff and their comfort level, I think when you put everything together, yes, we can definitely have a better healthcare system. That will include the primary healthcare as well. So it's not just the tertiary and the secondary care, but the primary healthcare, the structures part, the professionals part, everything put together, I think we'll definitely get a better service.
Someone sent me a question and said, look, I heard you having Dr. Mark on your program on Sunday. And could you ask him to me, how does he intend on addressing the long wait at the emergency department? People say that they go there and they wait for hours, sometimes 5, 6 hours, and in some cases they even have to abandon waiting.
Okay. First and foremost, PM.
Is that a fair question by the public?
Yeah, it's fair, but I'll explain to you what's happening there.
Yeah.
First and foremost, we must realize at the accident and emergency department, it's not first come, first serve. Worst come, first serve. So if you come with a little minor ailment, in there the doctors and the nurses might be dealing with an asthmatic in severe distress. They might be dealing with a cardiopulmonary issue that is severe, and so they might not, you might have to wait a little longer. But it's not always the case. Sometimes they might have a point, but generally speaking, the nurses and doctors, they're not just sitting there. They're actually doing things in there. So someone may think, well, I'm here for almost 2 to 3 hours. But yes, there might be a real severe case in there, and the people are occupied, the staff is occupied getting it done. So it's not a matter of how long you've been there, but it's how severe is your case compared to someone else. So we have to consider this as well. Notwithstanding the fact that I think previously it was worse, because now we have 2 medical officers at any one time in the emergency department, something we never had before. So that has made it...
They're resident there, so they're there.
They're right there. So we have 2 medical officers. But yes, sometimes you can get a little delay. But PM, in all fairness, this is not unique to Dominica. Someone who's traveled elsewhere and you've been to emergency room elsewhere, you wait for hours.
Well, I mean, all of us who go to the hospital we're the worst off, you know what I mean? So, but I suspect we want to consider having somebody who can interact with the waiting public to explain to them this, because the nurses and doctors are busy. And to communicate. Somebody made a call earlier to the commission about communication. But we have a call. Let us take a call and we'll come back. Please.
Hi, hello. I would like to divert you a little bit. Could the PM speak about the issue in Guyana with the electoral crisis, given that he was one of the CARICOM prime ministers that has visited Guyana?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Could the PM, what is the PM official position on the electoral process in Guyana, given that he was one of the visiting CARICOM prime ministers?
Yeah, I was one of the prime ministers who came to Guyana. I can give a comment on the Guyana elections at some other time, but tonight we're focusing on health in Dominica. Thank you very much. But we'll take note of the question that you've asked, and I'll certainly give a comment at some point. Thank you. But Dr. Mark, we have ambulances, and somebody falls ill, the ambulance very efficiently goes and picks up this person at the home. So for example, the ambulance in Roseau, somebody falls sick, let's say in Newtown. There has been talk about the need to consider training of emergency medical technicians. What's your view on this? Are there plans to do this?
Yes, as a matter of fact, those of you who've read our manifesto, it's clearly outlined in our manifesto, our plans.
That's the Dominica Labour Party manifesto?
Yes, yeah. Our dynamic Dominica PM. And where we talk about the emergency medical technicians. Because we just don't want an ambulance to just be an ambulance with a driver. We need a staff that is well trained, and we don't necessarily think that you need to have a nurse at every ambulance, outing with the driver. I think the ambulance staff, actually it was done in 2013. So it's just a matter of reactivating the whole training process, and we have people on island prepared to do that training.
Sure.
So we have a plan for this, where our ambulance people will be trained, and the fire chief has also mentioned this, so that when the ambulance gets out there, we have trained emergency medical technicians. So,
well, I think this will make a huge difference.
Definitely,
I mean,
definitely.
It's going to make a huge difference. Now, on the issue of accessing critical healthcare abroad, I think we really need to find a way of addressing this. I mean, for example, we have citizens, cancer patients who have to travel to Guyana for cancer treatment. I mean, what is really keeping us from providing that service and care to the cancer patients here in Dominica instead of they having to travel to Guyana for it? Because we have been able to spend a significant amount of money sending these patients out there.
Definitely. I get your point, PM. We do spend quite a bit of money trying to access tertiary care in other islands. At the moment, the areas where you brought up the part of cancer, and it's basically radiation therapy. We do chemotherapy here. It's basically the radiation therapy people would have to go to Guyana to do. The other place in the Caribbean maybe would be Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, Antigua, but Guyana ends up being the cheapest. But I agree with you. These are things that we are definitely looking into, and these are things that are possible that can be done here. But we wouldn't want to bite more than we can chew. So what we're going to do here now, you mentioned cancer, but there's also another proposal for a neurology department that we intend to, actually we've identified a certain area in the Princess Margaret Hospital compound where we can set up that neurology department. So let alone cancer care, neurology, we definitely can do, and we are looking into those things, because you wonder, well, how difficult can it be for us to set up something like that? But when we've gone on with all our health centers, our new hospital, our neurology department which we want to set up, these are the other areas that definitely we want to take healthcare to the next level. But I agree with you 100%, we should investigate, and we've started the discussions, we just have to move along.
Thank you. We're getting a call, please. Hello.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. Good evening, Dr. McIntyre.
Good evening.
I would first like to thank the government of Dominica and all the other governments who have provided scholarships to young Dominicans to go about studying in the field of medicine. Now, with all these new infrastructures in the medical health system coming about, my issue is with the human resource. We have all these graduated medical doctors coming back home and having a long waiting period before they are integrated into the system, sometimes over a year. And then when integrated, the process is about 18 months. So we're talking about a 2.5 years before they can be completely integrated.
So internship?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yes.
Yeah, please. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Dr. Mark?
Okay, I get your question quite clearly. When some of these students come home, they have to do a compulsory 18 months, which is what I think you're referring to. And then sometimes they take might be a little time before they can get into the system. But if, to be fair, over the past few months, over the past maybe 6 months, we've actually brought in almost close to 10 medical officers and almost 6 or 8 interns. So the process has been improved, I must confess, and the people are getting into the system much quicker than they used to be. But you mentioned something about the human resource. this is all part of the new vision for health, in the sense that we know exactly all the different doctors in the relative different disciplines and their different departments, so that we don't end up with a glut of one set of consultants and then the other department would be lacking. So we have, so to speak, like an inventory, and we know where we're going to be sending people to graduate, to specialize in. Just recently we got our urologists back. So this is why at our hospital now we have other departments that we never had years ago. For instance, now we have a cardiology department and we have a Dominican cardiologist as well. We also have a urology department which was never there, and we have a Dominican urologist who just returned as well. So there are quite a few things. Our echocardiogram, we have a Dominican here who's come home who has the capability, and they're the one carrying out those things. So in terms of the human resource, yes, I agree, sometimes there will be a little delay, but it's much faster than it used to be, and there's a reason for that particular delay. And in terms of the human resource for the different departments, we're actually working on that so that we can have Dominicans in all our relevant departments at the hospital. But good question.
Thank you. Just to repeat the numbers: 611-3400 and 225-3400. So 611-3400 or 225-3400. We have a call on the line, please. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you.
I am calling because recently, well, actually last week, I saw that the Dominican State College posted on Facebook celebrating their nursing students. They did their final licensing exam and they've got 100% pass rate. Mm-hmm. However, while they're celebrating their achievements under the Certified Practical Nursing program, I'm wondering, is there a suggestion to have the name change at the ministry level? Because there it is called nursing assistant, but the Dominican State College has it as the Certified Nursing Program. So I'm wondering if there are any suggestions to have the level 2 nurse name change from nursing assistant to the Certified Practical Nursing. Thank you.
Okay. Your question fits in right into in the future as you, well, in our Dynamic Dominican Manifesto, we did mention about the reclassification program. So in our reclassification program, all these different categories and the different levels of the nursing will be addressed. So this one will definitely be addressed as well, as you talk about in terms of the naming and switching from one name to another. So that, if I were you, I wouldn't worry too much about this. This will be dealt with, and we're going to handle this in our reclassification program. Yes, point well taken.
All right, the calls are coming in fast and furiously. Next caller, please.
Yes, Mr. Skerrit, good night. How are you?
Fine, sir. Thank you. Good night to you.
Good night. I'm a supporter of you.
I appreciate it very much, sir.
Yeah, blessings in your program.
And be fruitful and multiply that.
Something, the Cochrane Road, Rollerton Pipe until he is made man.
The Cochrane Road?
Yes, Mr. Rollerton Piper, he worked hard for the Cochrane community.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Mr. Piper worked very hard for us and he's still working very hard for us.
Mr.
Yeah, I know Mr. Piper very well.
Okay. Yes, yeah. I'm telling you. No, I know my name. I'm Duncan Brown from Moosai Trucking in my work.
Oh, okay. I know you, man. I know you.
Yes, you know me. You know me already. Yes.
Of course, my brother.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
All right, Jagai.
I'm big him up for today.
All right, cool. So we'll big up
Mr. Piper. Yes.
Yeah, Piper is doing a wonderful job there.
Soul there.
Yeah, very, very wonderful guy. But Dr. Mack, the issue of I spoke to the health commissioner earlier, and we spent some time talking about the CT scan, the X-ray machines, and like equipment that always seem to be dysfunctional or non-functional rather. How do we propose to fix this problem? Because people depend on this test, on these services. Mm-hmm. So the doctor can determine what is wrong with his people, and the cost sometimes in the private sector is prohibitive.
I think, PM, there are two ways that come straight up that we have to handle this. One, we need to have an engineering department. These are well, let alone expensive equipment, but this equipment is a high-tech stuff, and we need to have an engineering department in all of the hospitals and other places in the world. They have an engineering department attached to the hospital, so that whenever these things break down, we don't have to wait for long periods of time to have technicians coming from abroad. So that's number one. We need to, granted we have a maintenance department, they're doing a pretty good job, but obviously we have to step up with our new hospital and with our equipment. We need to step it up to a real proper engineering department. Apart from that, where we get this equipment from and the contracts, we need to have proper contracts so that the servicing of this equipment is very important. So these are the two things. Let alone that, every now and then, well, in the past, we used to hear, well, this machine has broken down or this machine has broken down. But as regards to the lab, you must have noticed over the past few months, it's a while you haven't heard that the chemistry machine has broken down, because we're setting up a backup system now. As a matter of fact, we have a new chemistry with immunology machine, and then the other ones we have them as backup. So that part of the lab, I think we've rectified that pretty well. It's a while we haven't heard that chemistry machine has broken out of the hospital, because we have a backup system and it's fitting and it's working in very well. But as regards to the other more complex equipment like the CT scan and the MRI, yes, we have to have a better engineering department, and yes, we have to have some better contracts as regards to servicing all those equipments. And I think that way we can definitely cut down the idea that we have to keep sending people abroad every time to have those things done. Yes.
Thank you. Well, we're really hoping that we can arrest the situation. As you know, we've been speaking about it almost on a daily basis.
But PM, in terms of the MRI and the CT scan, just to let the public know as well, that we got the couch. When we got the new MRI machine, that gives us 160 slices compared to the 16 slices machine that we had. There was a little damage in the shipment of the couch. So we had to get a new couch, which had to be manufactured, and the couch did come, but however, we haven't been able to mount it up because of COVID. And we did try to get the people from Canon and from Medica that we got it from, and they said it's just too delicate a process. They'd rather have to come and do it personally. The MRI, it's been calibrated and it's been commissioned, but it's just a matter of the training, and the training is holding on because of COVID. So when our borders are open, yes, PM.
So the person's coming from where now?
To train?
Yeah.
Yes, they'll come to train us.
Where they coming from? From Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico. So the guys from Medica come from Puerto Rico, and then the people from Canon come from, I think, California, and they'll be doing all of this here.
I mean, I know it's COVID. I mean, we can't get them into Puerto Rico with charter plane. Let them come to Dominica. They quarantine for a couple of days. We administer PCR tests to them. So can we put that proposal to them?
PM, we put that proposal to them, and I wish I could have shown you the response. We did put that proposal to them, and they said it was a very delicate process to get done. I have it here. Their reasons, they said the company has responded as following, that the installation is too complex to perform by remote assistance, because we asked them that one. And then they said also after couch installation, several calibrations and the tube and the QA tests are required. So they said that was the second reason. We pushed them again, and they said we regretfully inform you that, like, medical imaging cannot commit to sending personnel until safe travel conditions. And we kept pushing and pushing to get them here, but unfortunately, they stood their ground.
Okay.
Yes.
Dominica has had significant success with the management of COVID-19 pandemic. And once again, I want to commend you and your team for the exceptional work. Where are we now with regard to COVID-19 nationally?
Nationally, it's 82 days that we haven't had a case. And 82 days is quite a period that we haven't had a case. And then we also completed our community-based screening, and we did a total of 800 PCR tests, and we had just a 2.2%, which is basically the lowest in the OECS as regards to cases. And most probably, I think we came second in terms of the amount of cases we did per population. So we have no evidence of ongoing community transmission. It's been 82 days we haven't had a case, and we still continue our surveillance measures just to be on the safe side, because we know it's all about case identification, contact tracing, testing, and we've been doing all of this, and so far we've been successful.
Now, the emergency powers come to an end on Tuesday.
Correct.
The 30th. The government is not intended to extend this.
Correct.
And therefore, in large measure, we go back to quote-unquote normal. or the new normal, really. What is your caution to us as citizens and residents as we move into back to the pre-emergency powers regulations?
Yes, PM, that is very, very important because granted, emergency powers over on Tuesday, as you said, and we're back to where we were before. But we're back to where we were before, but before we didn't have COVID. Now that we have COVID, we have to make sure that we can practice all these public health and social measures that we've had in place, which is what has brought our success. And so whether it's the hand hygiene, whether it's our sneezing or respiratory etiquette, whether it's our wearing of our masks, whether it's our sanitizing, we have to emphasize that. Just to bring to point, as a matter of fact, up to March of this year, influenza-like symptoms were down to 4 cases per week. Prior to these measures we put for COVID, we used to be getting 25 cases per week. So it just shows you how wearing a mask, washing of hands, proper respiratory etiquette can cut down these things. So this is what we want to emphasize, that the public should, as soon as these things, the emergency hours are over, we have to get back to practicing. Well, we should do it even now, but even more.
So we have to keep on washing our hands, using hand sanitizers, as all the time.
All the time.
All the time. So
that's
really,
the new normal, PM.
It's going back to the basics and staying with the basics.
Correct.
People are concerned about the reopening of our borders. There are people all over the world, Dominican citizens and people who want to visit Dominica. We have hinted to the country that we shall open up the borders or reopen the borders come July next month. This is a very ticklish situation, as we all recognize, as there's certainly a risk of new infection, as we've seen in many states and countries, associated with the reopening of our borders. What testing, and of course testing is going to be critical. What testing protocols is the Ministry of Health advising to be put in place to ensure we can mitigate against the risk of infections coming into our country?
Okay, well, we have been going over this over the past few weeks, and we've put some protocols in place. But before I tell you about the testing, we have to appreciate the fact that there's no blueprint as to how you open a border. It hasn't been done before. This is uncharted territory, and so it's not like we can just take this protocol from somewhere else. We have to tweak it, and we have to be pragmatic in our approach.
Last week alone, I had about 16 meetings, both national meetings and regional meetings on opening up borders. 16.
And everybody's scrambling, trying to figure what's the best way, but no blueprint. But what we thought would be the ideal thing is, prior to coming here, we would love that you have a PCR test done, preferably within 72 hours. And we also have the online questionnaire that the person has to fill out. This questionnaire has all the information as to your address, where you've been before for the past 14 days, where you've traveled, where do you work, because that's important for us, your different social habits. And it's a nice comprehensive questionnaire. And based on that questionnaire, we can have an idea in which category do we fit you, low, high, medium risk, and then we can take measures accordingly. But with this PCR being done preferably within 72 hours, and even when you get here, so that's the first line of defense. The second one is the questionnaire. The third one, when you get here as well, we have temperature screening. If you're 99.8 and below, then you go to the next stage. If you're 99.8 and above, then you go to the secondary screening. So that's a fourth line of defense again. And then we also have the rapid antibody test, which we'll be doing here. And then based on this, that's another fifth line of defense.
So everybody who comes to Dominica will be subjected to a rapid test?
No question about that, definitely. So you're coming in before, it's best that you have a PCR test. When you come here, we still do the rapid test. And based on the results of the rapid test, we can decide where we filter you. If you have a positive IgM, which means you might be likely to have it, and then we have to do swabbing. So we also can do swabbing at our environmental health office at the Douglas Charles.
Just hold on, Dr. Mark. Let's get a call, please. And there's a question I want to ask you in respect to that. Yes, please, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, PM.
Yes, sir.
And to the doctor, I want to congratulate your government and the health team for being so effective in terms of managing the crisis and when it comes to the coronavirus. I'm living abroad and I'm impressed to see how the government and officials are talking about Dominica in regards to do with the way you all managed the crisis of the coronavirus. Now, the program is called Anu Valley, and I'm not hearing a little girl now and then. and
où ça parle pas très bien, où ça, s'il vous plaît?
Ah, pas de problème, docteur, pas de problème. No,
Mais s'il vous plaît, où ça m'a check sur un patron, où ça? Me répond non?
Il pas de problème.
Ok.
Docteur, ça parle pas toi.
Ok.
Okay, okay, and I heard you all mention about the different hospitals and health centers that have been improving in Dominica. And I know in my community there is also some project at the hospital, and I did not hear you all mention it. So has it been completed in Grand Bay?
The hospital in Grand Bay?
No.
Grand Bay is going to have to get a completely new health facility. I mean, this facility we have in Grand Bay is certainly beyond. I mean, we've done a lot of repairs there, and the plan there is to build both the hospital and the health center similar to what, not to the scale of Marigot, because Marigot is a major health district, but certainly to provide better healthcare services for Grand Bay. So there's some work happening there, repairs, but that is just really temporary works that happen in there and some extension of it. But there's another section of it that really needs to be completely reconstructed and so forth. So some work is ongoing there with an extension, but the older part will have to be demolished in the near future.
Yeah, okay. Just to add to what the PM was saying, that's what being done by PAHO. That's the smarting of the Grand Bay Health Center.
A portion of it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Mark, now somebody comes in on the plane, or the ferry. The rapid test is administered at the port?
Yes, at the port. Yes, it's done at the port. Yeah. And based on the result, if we
How long do we get the result? So you do the test. How long after this?
Most of these test kits, you can get it within 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we've devised a plan that we'll have someone doing the documentation, someone doing the testing part, so that we can get it done in a much quicker period of time.
Yeah. So the person is negative, you send the person to the hotel or to their residence?
Right. So if the person gets, well, they have different types of the results that can come in. If the person is IgM positive, it's very likely that they could have been in contact with someone with COVID recently. So this person goes to the secondary screening site. This person doesn't enter the terminal. The secondary screening site, where we can do a PCR test now. And this person goes to the quarantine facility or a designated facility by the government until we get the results in 24 hours. If the person is positive IgG, that means they have immunity, then they're free to go and through the terminal. And if the person is negative for both IgG and IgM, then that person is still followed up. So that is where the surveillance in the district and at the hotels is of paramount importance.
Your phone call, please.
Hello?
Okay. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, PM.
Hi, good evening to you.
Good evening, Dr. Mark.
Good evening.
I would like to find out about the health center in Saint-Omer. What plans do you all have for there? Because we have some renovation to be done in this health center.
That's which one?
And another question is, if somebody has to detect that they have cancer, which area in the hospital do we go, and is there a specific test that we have to do to find out if we have cancer or something like that?
Just repeat your last part of the question, please.
Yeah. The person is saying if they want to know whether she has cancer or somebody has cancer, which department of the hospital do they go and what type of test do they have to carry out?
Okay. But you wouldn't even really have to go to the hospital for that one, because at our health centers in the district, we have screening going on. This is exactly why we have our pap smears being done, so So that is a screening that as regards to cervical cancer. Then let alone from the health districts, you can also get your PSA done so that the men can know whether their PSA is high. And these are all screening tests for prostate cancer. So we have those for prostate cancer, we have those for cervical cancer. And in the health districts, you can also get those forms that you can have mammograms done. So that's where we're screening for breast cancer. So all of this screening is done at the district level. So you don't necessarily have to come to the hospital to get those screening tests done. But, and the district system is handling that pretty well. So even if you were to just get to your health centers, all of these can be arranged for you. So that's not a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Mac. A caller, please. Question?
Good night, PM. What's up?
I called.
Roy in Monbruce.
Okay, right.
Good job, good job.
Thank you.
If we have a problem, and I want to talk to Dr. McIntyre about it.
Yeah.
Sometime before COVID, I was sitting with my daughter at the hospital, and it was a very bitter experience. We definitely have some doctors that are giving the government a bad news. They belong to the other side and they don't do their job properly. I mean, we were insulted. It was a very, 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 very bitter experience. I don't think I want to call him on air now, although I don't mind. But it was a very big, and okay, Dr. Fabian was very, 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 very unprofessional. And I think that's one of the situations that we really need to address in the hospital. There are some guys in there that are not taking this serious, just to give the government a bad name. And that has to be dealt with. Thank you so much.
Well, we take note of this observation. I'm sure the minister will take note of this and inquire about this particular experience you had at the hospital. Dr. Mack, just to ask you, when our citizens return home, the borders are open, they return home, are they required to be quarantined?
Okay, as regards to quarantine, there are different types of quarantine. So they don't necessarily, since we have the PCR before, since we have the rapid test before, we feel confident that we can send our Dominicans to their homes, their residence. However, all of this information goes out to the district team, and the district team monitors them. So it's basically self-quarantine, but it's not unsupervised. It is supervised, it is monitored, and we'll be taking a look at all of these. So yes, they can go home, but not just free for all. We will be monitoring them, we'll be supervising them. So it's self-quarantine, and we'll be but we're only doing that because we had 2 tests already. Yeah.
Now, people are asking, we'll say, well, this thing is costing the government a lot of money to do all of its tests. And they're asking here on the WhatsApp message, is the visitor the ones paying for the PCR test?
Yes, the visitor will pay for the PCR test. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
And those fees will be published?
Oh yes, definitely.
In advance, okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Now, clearly, there are some changes we have to make at the airports and the seaports. Have you given consideration to this?
Yes. As a matter of fact, on Friday, we had the personnel from DASPA, from Immigration. We also had the Environmental Health. We had the lab. Mr. Jones from the lab was there as well. And they did a complete walkthrough through the ports so that we can decide exactly where the health officer is, where the temperature is being done, where the tests are being done, how do they proceed next to immigration, then to customs, even to come out for the transportation. So we've done an entire walkthrough for this. And obviously we're going to maintain our physical distancing and all the other measures that we put in place so that we can be as safe as possible. We've gone through this, PM. Yes, we have this outlined.
Okay,
pretty well.
Phone call, please.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you.
I want to commend Dr. Mack and the Ministry of Health for a very good job. Dr. Mack, I think you have really helped Dominica tremendously, and I'm extremely delighted at that. One of the things I would like to know, when the people do the test, is there a form that you can give issue to them indicating that they have done the test? Or if they have to travel, they can go across with it. And again, a very good job on behalf of the ministry. I wanted to ask something else to do with travel, but I do not think the PM is dealing with that tonight. Because we heard something about Leah being liquidated and a new company going to come on stream. I don't know if you have time to
I
speak
will
on
say
that.
something at
Thank
the
you.
end of the program on this,
Thank
on the Liat matter.
As regards to your question, yes, you see like you have an immunization card, and on that card you have your different vaccinations that you've had. So likewise, when we get that test, when that test is done, you can either get a printout of your result, and it can also be put on a particular card for you. So yes, you can show that card. If you were to travel, you can show that card that you did have that test done, and it will be documented, stamped, signed from our district teams. So that's not an issue. You will have that certificate available for you.
Now, Dr. Mark, we are open up the borders. We are mindful of the risk associated with that decision. This is why we have been deliberate in our actions, and this is why we have been giving all kinds of consideration to the implications of reopening the borders, and there has been no rush on our part. So we recognize that there are risks. What's your advice to all of us as to how can we continue to protect ourselves once we have the borders reopened?
So as I mentioned earlier, opening of the borders, PM, you have to appreciate the fact that the chance of importing a case is real. It's happened all over the world. Dominica is no exception. If we open the borders, the chances that someone going to slide in is real. So to mitigate that, that is where we have to continue practicing all the public health and social measures that we've been discussing all along. So we have to go back to the basics that we spoke about earlier, and we cannot overemphasize that point. It's all about our hand hygiene, our respiratory etiquette, our social distancing, and you know, it's all about how we plan our activities and our lives. We can't I wouldn't want everybody to come to Roseau. You come to Roseau today to get sugar. You come to Roseau today on next day to get flour. You come to Roseau the next day to get oil. We have to plan things. We don't want people just out in the public, just all over the place, socializing, not distancing. So we have to get back to the basic public health and social measures. Bottom line in mitigating the fact that we might get cases if we open our borders.
Right, thank you. No, thank you, Dr. Mark. I know people like to say we are COVID-free. I mean, it is 82 days since the last positive case. But that simply cannot be the case, as this continues to be a global pandemic. As a people, we need to remain vigilant. What are your views on this?
I agree with you.
COVID-free concept.
I agree with you 100%. PM, to say that we're COVID-free while there are COVID cases out there doesn't make much sense. Because
and
if
Florida, there's a surge in Florida, there's a surge in Texas, there's a surge in
as a matter of fact,
California.
I think California, they shut down for another 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so COVID-free, granted, we might feel happy, but the point is, as long as there are cases out there, there's nothing to boast about so much that we're COVID-free. COVID-free, we can boast that we did things well and we put things in place. But the risk is always going to be there. So I don't want us to get carried away with the fact that we haven't had a case for 82 days. A case can come from anywhere. You saw our first index case gave us 9 cases, and it can spread within a flash. So no, we have to be vigilant. We have to be focused, and that's the only way we can continue to fight COVID.
So be vigilant and not be complacent. This is the advice of Dr. McIntyre, our minister.
Correct.
A phone call, please.
Hello, good evening.
Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, sir.
PM, good night. How are you doing?
I'm cool, thank you. What about you?
Good.
Very good.
I just want to congratulate the COPEL doctor, Dr. McIntyre. I remember when my mom used to go to the hospital, we used to call to find out whether Dr. McIntyre is on call or not before she went to the hospital. So, Doc, you have been doing a very good job, and you are one of the best ministers of health we have ever passed through. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Copel.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mark, we could speak for hours on health and days and weeks on health. There's so much to talk about, but our time is coming to an end. I would ask that you give some final words to our viewing and listening public.
First, I really want to thank the public, the part they have played, because granted, the government, the Ministry of Health, the system, we've put things in place as regards to fighting COVID, but had it not been for you, the public, adhering and following the guidelines that we put forward, it wouldn't have we wouldn't have had the result that we had. So I really want to thank the public, and I congratulate the public, the effort and the energy they put into. I remember those earlier days when Roseau seemed like a ghost town, and that's how we flattened the curve. So you, the public, you did an excellent job, and we're really grateful and really thankful for that. Secondly, our frontline workers, no words to express our gratitude. You've done exceptionally well, and we're pleased. We're very, very pleased. And the way that you've carried out yourself, it was a great sacrifice. A lot of you had to put into, but you did it. And you did it for the better goal. You did it for the country. And the Ministry of Health and the country on a whole, the government is really pleased, and we thank you for all of this. So the public, you played a part. Thank you very much. The frontline workers, you did play a part. Thank you very much. And tonight, I just want to mention also the pharmacists that we've forgotten once or twice when we mention frontline workers. I just want to emphasize, yes, you, the pharmacists, we have you on board, and so you're all part of the fight against COVID. So we're very pleased about that. And thirdly, we have to continue what we have been doing. That is the bottom line. You have to continue. We are putting everything in place as regards to testing, how we open our borders. We're going through all the precautionary measures. But you, the public, stay on board, do what we're asking you to do, and we can do it together.
Thank you very much. I wish to thank the members of the commission who joined me tonight, Mrs. Jennifer Astafan and His Excellency Edward Williams. I look forward to their recommendations as we make the necessary changes to our health system to ensure that all of you are better served. I also want to thank the Minister for Health, Honorable Dr. McIntyre, for his contribution tonight. This government remains committed to the delivery of healthcare that addresses patient needs and ensures patient safety in a timely and efficient manner. We're also working to promote a more equitable and people-centered system that considers the needs of every Dominican. With our recent gains in infrastructural development and with planned adjustments to the administrative structure, I believe we are well on our way to seeing an improved health sector. I wish once again to thank the many frontline workers who toiled to keep this country safe during the COVID-19 pandemic and who continue to perform their functions in the best interest of the Dominican people. Thank you for your tireless efforts. Next week Sunday, I want to look at the public service and the police service and appointments in the public service. Many people complain about the length of time they have been acting in certain positions or remain on temporary employment. Teachers are in the service for 15 and 20 years with no appointments. There are some public servants and police officers who complain about being bypassed for various positions within the establishment. Next week, I shall have the Secretary to the Cabinet, Ambassador Steve Farrell, and the Acting Chief Personnel Officer, Ms. Corinne Privot, to speak to those matters. I have also extended a cordial invitation to Mr. Thomas Litter, the General Secretary of the Public Service Union, PSU. I await his favorable response. Please remember, you can send questions that you want to answer on one-on-one at, what's the email address? At anupale.com. I also want to hear your suggestions on how to make improvements within the government service. I want to hear from you, my dear friends. So thank you for joining us. But before I leave, I want to make a short statement on LIAT. The majority shareholders of LIAT met yesterday morning, Saturday. That is Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Dominica. And we received a report from the Board of Directors drawing to attention certain issues confronting LIAT 1974 Limited. One of the recommendations is for the winding up of LIAT 1974 Limited operations and to seek to create a new entity to ensure continued service in this region. These are extraordinarily difficult times, and there are certain actions which must be taken. But I will say that we will all agree that LIAT 1974 Limited has served Dominica well. We've had challenges in the past with delayed flights or cancellation of flights, but we have to say that LIAT has been good to us, not only in Dominica, but the entire Caribbean. And I am convinced as a regionalist, as an integrationist, that whatever new entity comes up, that the people of Dominica must provide whatever support we can within our means to ensure that we can have intra-regional travel. LIHAT has shown its capacity, its abilities, obviously confronting challenges pre-COVID and certainly worsened in the COVID period. And the next step is to have a meeting of the other shareholders so concrete, decisive actions can be taken and a number of attendant issues that we have to deal with. But let us not give up. Let us not be daunted. We should not be despair. We should not despair at all. In terms of challenges, leadership must step forward, and this is what we're seeking to do. And each of us is a leader in our own right. You have a job. You should be diligent as you should be, and let us be positive citizens in this country. Negativism is not going to get us anywhere in Dominica. What we need is people who are committed to working, focusing on issues that are pertinent to the welfare and well-being of our citizens. And this is what my commitment is to you, the people of Dominica. It is not easy, but we have to continue to persevere. And in every disappointment, there's a blessing, and we have to now pray to God that He shows us those blessings and that we can take advantage of them. And so let us ensure that we work together so that our tomorrow can be better than today. God bless you. God bless our country, Dominica. God bless your families. See you next week, Sunday. God's prayer. And those of you who are asking whether Skerrit will have a time to be on the program every Sunday, as long as I'm in Dominica, I will show up, because this for me is one of the most important, if not the important part of my job, to hear from you and we can exchange views on national development. This is our country, this is not mine alone. I have a role to play, but you have a role to play as well. And tell us as it is. If you like something, say it. If you don't like something, tell us what you don't like and how can we replace what you don't like with something that you like that can benefit you, benefit your family, and benefit our country. Thank you. God bless.